Hi, Molly Doyle doing her presentation on the Ojibwe people and origin myths. And this is round two, meaning a first time around, I took 15 minutes. So I'm going to try to be brief and share the most salient points. I'm going to share my screen and let's go. Let's go. So one of my favorite things about what I just researched and what we were talking about for this course is how deep one can go into a group of people that you really know like nothing about. And so the reason I wanted to do the all of Ojibwe people is because they are extremely relevant to our part in the world, and I just found that I didn't want to focus on one specific tribe because I wanted to have a better understanding of this incredibly large and influential group of people. So because I'm a language person, and that has actually been one of my barriers to entry in Native American culture, is the language and the spelling has such wide variations. And so I found that Ojibwa and Ojibwe are pretty much interchangeable, and that Anishinaabe is what I thought that was a tribe that's actually could be considered all Native peoples. And that Chippewa is actually a corruption of Ojibwe, so it's not really in common parlance. Through a lot of advocacy, they've moved back toward Ojibwe. And in one of the texts I found, that notes that Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Indian, Native American, Aboriginal, and Indigenous may be used interchangeably. And that's something that I think has also given a barrier for me, and a lack of confidence, is I didn't know what terms I was allowed to use and which ones would cause offense or not cause offense. So I was really happy to see that a wide variety kind of can fall under that same umbrella. So very briefly, the Ojibwe people come from the mother group of the Algonquins, and they're originally from northeastern North America and the Atlantic coast. 27 tribes trace their origins to the Algonquin, and some of those are like the Ojibwe, Blackfeet, Cree, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. I'm really struggling with that one. And today their languages actually share similarities. It's the author I read likened it to the Romance languages, like Spanish and Portuguese, or Spanish and French have kind of that same Indo-European root, and same too for these languages. Even though they're distinct, they have similarities. The Ojibwe started as a distinct subgroup around 1,500 years ago, and the name comes from either the puckered seam of a moccasin or also their tradition of writing on birch bark. This is just a fantastic image of them in full regalia. And the other piece I really wanted to understand is the clan system, and that's why I spent time here. The word dudem or dodem in Ojibwe is what word means clan, and that's actually where we get the English word totem, which is super cool. And that the clan determines your place in society, and marrying within the clan was strictly forbidden. Now the clan, not the way that I had originally understood it, I thought the clan was like the family, meaning your blood relatives, but it's not. It's the group of people or the part of society in which you inhabit. And the only capital offense, at least in the Ojibwe people cited by Anton Truer, is that was the only capital offense, was actually marrying within the clan. So it was really taboo. Now, my favorite visual I found was this. And to help me understand, I heard of these clan names, but I didn't really understand what they meant, how they were related, what it meant about a person who was of a specific clan. And so this is something I'm going to continue to use and have at the ready. And to find out that like the loon and the crane were the kind of the social leaders or civic leaders, and that many times, like when they moved west, they didn't necessarily settle with loon or crane people, and therefore they had some of the people like the bear, marten, the lynx, or the wolf rose up to fill that part. There's a strictly gender division of labor, and age was highly valued, meaning the elderly were esteemed for their wisdom. I wish we had more of that in our modern culture. And that they do have a single creator, and I found a connection, which I'll talk about later, to they have a pantheon of spirits, usually nature spirits, which play traditional roles or like kind of fit in a specific box, and that's who they're responsible for that. And it reminded me of like Hindi gods as well as classical Greek. So So the prophecy and how the Ojibwe moved west, this is probably my favorite part, is that they needed to move west to the land where food grows on water. And I found that to be really cool. And so oral history says that that's the prophecy that they fulfilled, but also they didn't move as one chunk. It was, it was a migration slowly in small groups or bands. And it was also because of resource scarcity, competition for land, and tribal warfare. So this was my favorite image I found. I believe it's actually a very grainy picture, but I found it in my Anton Truer book, Ojibwe in Minnesota, and it's Indians gathering wild rice in northern Minnesota. Briefly, there was a origin myth called Nanabuzu or Nanabozu and the Wendigo. And I could go really deep into that, but I don't want to spend 15 minutes again. Just wanted to state that this is an origin myth, and there is Nanabuzu, who is the creator spirit, sometimes a trickster, also known as a teacher. And then there's also the Wendigo, which had many manifestations, but it was a monster, cannibalistic, evil spirit. But the specific myth that I found and the story that I found had to do with colonization, as being the Wendigo manifested in the colonization of their people. So what I wanted to bring up is the trauma that Native peoples encountered was a threefold: loss of people through death and war, loss of land being manifest destiny, and then their loss of culture. Yeah, I don't have time for this. So the most important thing is, how will I use this in my teaching? I wish I'd kind of thought about this, is that earlier in the year, we do a mythology unit, and we spend many weeks on different Greek gods and different Greek god origin stories. And we only spend a day and a half, 2 days on non-Western or Native people's origin stories. And next year, I would really like to implement Ojibwe origin stories and have a larger component, not only because it's a state standard, but because it's occurring right here in the students' backyards in this place in the world, and very recently, versus classical Greek, which is over 2,000 years old and halfway around the world. And even though they have a lot of influence, like we get our modern word cereal from the Greek god of the harvest, Demeter or Ceres, I still think it's important for us to teach the lesser known and more the lesser known origin stories of the peoples who didn't get the same sort of, press, if you will. So I would like to teach the Ojibwe's origin story alongside our Greek myths, because it helps to have us liken or see the connections between our storytelling and oral traditions, as well as speaking for those who do not have a voice. And something else that I've struggled with is that we know so much about the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans because not just because they're Western and we wanted to keep their stories going, but they had written language and they wrote everything down. And so one of the pieces that is sad is that we don't have as much first-person narration of written tales from Ojibwe or Native peoples, because they just weren't that's not how they pass down their stories. They pass down their stories orally. And so because there's not as much information available, I feel like it's that much more important for us to speak it out, because there's not very likely that they're going to encounter it anywhere else. And so if they're not getting it from me, where are they going to get it? And so I was really happy to have this scratch the surface a little bit of the Ojibwe culture. And last but not least, I want to make a shout out to the Anton Truer book, Ojibwe in Minnesota. It was rich with information, and like I said, I only scratched the surface, and I'm really excited to dig deeper into that and implement those stories into my classroom. So I really liked being able to read another Native person, and I cannot pronounce her name, I'm sorry, but that it was really great to hear a myth from a Native person rather than just academic discussions about them. I hope I didn't go over too much time. This was a fantastic project, and I really learned a lot. Stop share. I can do this.